Welcome to Mad About Money. I'm Maddy Alexander-Grout and I am here with the lovely Cara Sayer from the fabulous brand SnoozeShade, which is just taking the world by storm.
It
And
feels
I
like
actually
it.
walked past somebody who had a snooze shade the other day in the park, and I was like, oh my God, I know the lady that makes that.
My mum does
Um,
that. I do that. If you're very unlucky and you're near me and I see a snooze shade, even after 13 years, I still run up and I'm like, "Hi, how are you finding the snooze shade?" And they look at me and I'm like, I'm 50, nearly 52, and I've got no baby around me, and they obviously look going, why is she interested in like this product? And then I go, "Oh, I invented it." And they're like, "Oh."
yeah, it's like, oh my God. But yeah, the lady who I was like, oh my God, I know the lady that makes them. And she was like, and I was like, it's really cool. I think she thought I was a bit mental.
Well, she
Like,
probably
yeah,
did.
just
They probably think we're
again,
all
I was
mental.
just out for a walk in the park, didn't actually have any kids with
Yes.
me. Probably shouldn't have been stopping to speak to a woman who's just got a baby in a pram on her own,
Oh
but
well, never
yeah,
mind.
it was
Whatever.
fine. So, Cara, tell us a little bit about Snooze Shade.
Well, SnoozeShade literally came about because I was a mum of a young baby. So I'm still, if I haven't really got a timeline per se, but Holly was born in October 2007. And I know that I registered the domain for SnoozeShade in December 2008. So I think that
Wow.
I probably came up with the idea of it sort of probably when she was about 7 or 8 months old, I think. Because she would have been sitting up in the pram at that time. Because
Yeah.
the one sort of light bulb moment I remember is that I was out with a group of friends. We were like an NCT group, and we were all having lunch, and all the babies were in their prams. They were actually all sitting up in the stroller, and then we fed them. And then basically everyone just put like a muslin or a blanket or a coat or a cardigan over the pram to get the babies to go to sleep. And I remember thinking at the time, well, surely there should be a product, that helps
Yeah.
babies, like a blackout blind, for the nursery windows. There should be something you can use for the buggy. And in fact, that was my first idea, was to call it buggy blind. But I decided not to, because I did some research into it. And actually, in some countries, there is no word for blind as in a window covering. There's only blind as in can't see.
Oh.
So I thought that might be a little bit like negative.
Yeah,
So I decided not to. And then I went for Snooze Shade, because that kind of says what it does. It helps
it
babies
does.
sleep and it shades them from the sun. So
Yeah.
I registered that in December 2008. And then again, I don't really remember like exact dates, but the next date I remember was October 2009, when I went to a baby trade show. And I had samples with me by that point. I'd met a manufacturer and got samples and everything. And I took my first prototype, which wasn't actually finished. So the product that I showed was not the finished one. I didn't even have any packaging. I had me and my mum went up there, and my mum and I both actually ran, like, weirdly, we're both ex event organizers. So you
Okay.
would have had some like amazing stand, but it was really shonky. Basically, we just had like bits of paper up with photos of friends pushing a pram, and I got a friend who was a printer who printed me up some cards that I put up saying "Mums love Snooze Shade" or something. And we took my pram up, which I'll never forget. My mum is like really OCD. She's really funny, and she was like, "Darling, there's a bird poo on the hood," and I'm like, "Oh well, never mind." Put a baby wipe, and off it came.
Brilliant.
And then it was at that show that I met the buyer for Jojo Maman Bebe.
Oh,
And she placed an order on the spot for delivery next year, because this was in October. So she wanted delivery, I think, by February 2010. And then the other reason that I wanted to go to a trade show, because I did think about doing something like Dragon's Den or what have you, but the reason I went to a trade show is I thought actually it would be a bit more useful, because potentially I would be talking to people who on a daily basis are talking to parents, and they would kind of give me that kind of real, at the face of the coal mine,
yeah.
like, feedback. And if they hated it, then I knew that I'd tried and it wasn't going to work. But the positive, generally, I think it was about 99% positive. The only person who sort of said they weren't sure was a man who said, "Oh, I don't think my children ever had any problems sleeping in the pram," and then wandered off. And I was like, okay, fine.
Lucky for you, you
Lucky for
bugger.
you, love. That's not why I invented it. So yeah, so I mean, that's pretty much kind of, I say that's how it started. That's, the idea came from me needing something for my own daughter, and then it became clear that other people thought it was quite an interesting idea. And like when I said to friends and things like that, and I posted online, and a few like in those days, remember, this is like back in 2008, like before, like, you know, didn't even have Instagram or anything like that. So I think it was Mumsnet and Net Mums, I think, that I was using in some of the forums. And I went in and said, this is my idea, what do you think? And like some of the mums were like going, oh yeah, no, that sounds like really interesting. So
you're lucky nobody stole it.
Well, they did.
Well, I mean, they did afterwards, didn't they?
Oh, no,
yeah, we'll talk about that.
No, they stole it at the time. So what was really interesting, it was really fascinating. So they actually called it Buggy Blind, but registered the .co.uk, and I think they had Buggy-Blind. And they were in somewhere like Stevenage or somewhere. And basically the first product that I did was actually white, not black, because I'd originally worked off a UV net, like as a sort of structure, like to give me an idea of like fitting multiple prams. So I'd sort of just copied what was out there, but differently, if you know what I mean. Originally it was white, and then I realized that in order for it to be white, you'd have to chemically treat it, which I didn't want to do, because or it would have to be a solid fabric, and therefore wouldn't be able to be air permeable, which the mesh is. So I then changed to a black fabric, because also it made more sense to me as well for the sleep, which is it would make it darker inside.
Well, it makes it darker, but also doesn't black, like, don't they say that it's less hot maximum, if you wear black?
Yeah, it blocks maximum UV.
Yeah.
So anyway, so these people, I remember when I went to the trade show in October, I'd been watching them because I'd seen it come up. And I've been watching them, and they were doing a white version of what I was doing at the time, and they were charging more than I was going to charge. And I mean, they had a, you know, I don't know, I don't know whether they were doing pre-orders or not, but anyway, I went to the trade show, and then as soon as I got like, oh well, Jojo Mama Bebe are doing it, and like Mothercare were interested, and John Lewis was interested, and I had other retailers, I think they just decided not to bother. Like, I think they knew that there was probably not much point in doing it. Then as far as I'm aware, they just shut the website down at some point, and, you know, but I didn't really worry about it. I mean, at the time, I suppose I did worry about it because I had no experience in what I was doing. But at the same time, I was a bit like, well, that's interesting that someone's found it so quickly. Do you know what I mean? Like, how on earth, like,
did they source the stuff? Yeah.
How the hell did they find out about it? But like, it must have been on like Mumsnet or Net Mums, and then they obviously were watching what I was doing. And obviously by that point, I'd built a website, I had pictures of the product and everything, and they just pretty much copied it.
Bastards.
I know.
But you're the successful one, and you have built the most amazing business.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm very proud of my other baby, because I always say I've got two babies. I've got Holly and I've got SnoozeShade. So they're both my babies.
Yeah, when you have a business, it does feel like your baby.
Yeah.
Like,
I would say, like, creating a new product is like giving birth, which is why I don't do it very often.
Yes, absolutely. I'm hoping now that Mad About Money is my last baby. I'm done with having babies. So
yeah. Well, I was done with that years ago, but yes.
Absolutely. So you started off with Jojo, they took some orders, then everybody else started getting interested. How did it grow from there?
So so initially there was a lot of interest in the UK, and then I went to my first trade show. So I actually I say that as if that nothing happened in between, but actually in between I managed to have a full nervous breakdown as well. Which
never good.
May or may not be due to, I was recently diagnosed with ADHD. And actually what I now understand about some of the things that have happened in my life is that maybe they were more ADHD related than what I thought was my mental health, if that makes sense. So
absolutely.
I think actually that what I had was kind of an ADHD meltdown, but we didn't know it was a meltdown. And I think there was an element of, there were other things going on in my life that weren't great. I was going through IVF, you know, trying to have another baby, but then basically Holly, when I was pregnant with Holly, I was in a wheelchair. And that was another reason why I was out and about with the pram so much, because when she was born, I wanted to be out and about walking again, like as soon as I could get up, because I spent nearly 9 months in a wheelchair. I was so excited to be walking that I was like out with the pram every 5 minutes, which is probably one of the reasons I felt the need so much for a product that would help her sleep when we were out, because I wanted to be out as much as I could. Plus I had postnatal depression. And obviously one of the things they suggest is, you know, meeting up with friends and doing things. So being stuck at home, you know, was not an option for my mental health, basically. But I think with everything that went on with SnoozeShade, it was a bit too successful too quickly. Plus I had the IVF going on, plus I had, you know, other things as well. And I just think it was all too much for my system. So I had a massive meltdown in June 2010. And then I was pretty much like out of action for a couple of months, and my mum had to move in and look after me and look after Holly, and my ex-husband was around as well. And then in the September, obviously having just had a full nervous breakdown and running a business and having a young baby, obviously the next thing you're going to do is go to an international trade show in Germany to promote your product, which is what I decided to do. So I think, did my mum come with me then? Yeah, I think my mum came with me to that one. So we went off to Germany in September, and then I picked up multiple distributors like Australia and UAE and Germany and, you know, France and Sweden and various other places. So, you know, it was like just go constantly. And, you know, it was really overwhelming, to be honest. And I had no experience in retail. I had no experience in manufacturing. I have got experience in marketing, which I think has been very helpful throughout, you know, what I do. But, you know, ultimately I didn't really know what I was doing, which is, you know, can be quite scary, because you're sort of like, you feel like you're fumbling your way along a lot, which you are fundamentally.
Yeah.
But
I think we're all like that when we first start a business. I know that.
And I mean, I'm a bright person, so I just pick things up pretty quickly. But like sometimes certain things I'm not very good. Like I've actually got apparently dyscalculia or something, which is like being, I find like if you ask me to do long division or short division, or like what's 13 as a percentage of 65, my brain will literally like
shut down.
If you give me a P&L and a spreadsheet, I'm quite happy, and I can spot immediately when there's problems. So, you know, it's
I can't even do that.
Okay, well, I'm quite pleased. I didn't even know what a P&L was when I started the business, but now I can like, look at them and I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's good, that's bad. Hang on a minute, well, we need to look here, and I can see in the sales figures as well. I'm like, oh yeah, we're up this year, we're down that year, you know, not a problem. Do you
know, I've taught myself to be better with it. I think because I'm so good with personal finances, and for me it's about like, I don't know what it is about looking at a bank account over a P&L. It's just it just like I can print off a bank statement and go through it with a highlighter and be like, there are anomalies there, and it's all like, because it's stuff that I buy for me, which is fun, and stuff that I pay, and I'm like, I don't know why it feels more comfortable doing it for me personally.
It's strange, because I mean, like for example today, like Candice, who works with me, like she sort of said, oh, what's this like bill, and I was like, oh, bloody can't remember it. It's like I really can't remember it. And then it turned out actually I'd paid a bill for a friend of mine, because of the fact that we were away somewhere, we were in Mexico of all places, and she needed to pay this bill in order to progress something for her business. And I was like, look, I'll pay it so that like you can get moving and you can pay me back when you come back. And I'd completely forgotten about it, and so she. So like Candice was like, well, what's this? And I'm like, oh yeah, just tell her, you know, like, so she'll pay me, it's not a problem. But it's just funny, isn't it? How, but I knew it wasn't right, because I was like, no, I don't remember that. And I
remember that one.
Good. Even now, and this is a piece of advice I would give everybody on their business. And I did this after COVID, and I do it every now and then. So when COVID hit, I ended up going through my credit card statements from the business, because I've got multiple credit cards, because I'm a big points collector. And I don't believe you should be spending, like, you know, I say your own money, obviously it is your own money, but like you shouldn't spend any money and not get something back for it, basically. So if I'm spending money on Facebook ads, I want to get the points for that. You know, I don't see why I should just pay them and that's it. So but what I did just during COVID, because obviously I was sitting there and like the business had fallen off a cliff. Like literally we'd gone from doing really well, having had a stonking 2019, an amazing beginning of 2020, and then literally fell off the fucking cliff. They're trying to work out, well, what can I cut where? And actually it's really strong advice is just go through your credit card statements or bank statements regularly, because you'll probably find you're still paying for some subscription that you completely forgot about.
Oh God, yeah.
Still paying for hosting on a website I hadn't had for 2 years, and that was costing £60 a month. You know, that's not small amounts of money, you know.
No, it's not.
So that's like what, £600. So you know, and I'd spent £1,200 over the last couple of years on something I wasn't even using anymore. You know, and I've done it before, like where I've kept subscriptions up, and then I'm like, oh, I forgot I had that, you know. So it's a really good idea, like personally and business wise, to just go through and check like every now and then that you're not paying for something you shouldn't be.
Absolutely. And actually in the Mad About Money app there is a subscription tracker, so you've actually got a template where you can write all your subscriptions down and track when they end and what you want. So yeah, and you can download that for free. So that's quite good. But yeah, I did that the other day with my business account, and I haven't done it for ages. And I realized that I was paying for a video editing software.
Yeah, there
I
we
was
are.
paying
Yeah.
I was paying for a oh, what are they called? Like a transcription service
Oh
where you
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
send videos and it turns it into a blog. And I was like, I used it once and
Oh,
it
you
was
don't
so
need that
shit that
anymore anyway. There's other services out there you could probably use now anyway.
I would have thought so. And yeah, so I saved myself about 45 quid.
Yeah, there you go.
And then I was like, oh, I
But
haven't
remember,
been
that's
sat
probably
net.
45
Yeah.
quid every month, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, as it happens, that's 45 quid every month for a year that you could have been spending and not thinking about.
Yeah. And there's like, subscriptions for networking things that you never go to.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, if you don't go to something, then don't pay for it. Even the people who are members of my business club, I'm like, just come, I'm not telling you to cancel it. I'm telling you to come because there's so much bloody value that we give in there. But
Exactly.
people, yeah, you know who your people are though, I guess, don't
Yeah,
you?
exactly.
But yeah, I think there are so many things that business owners don't think about when it comes to
Well, it's funny
business
because I always
finance.
liken it to being running your home, because if you think about it, you wouldn't just sort of take out one TV service and then start using another one and leave the other one running, or Wi-Fi or broadband.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You just wouldn't do it, or you wouldn't just check the rates on electricity companies. You shouldn't be like, you need to be like actually checking that whether or not it's competitive or not. And it's really interesting because I think sometimes with business people are a bit like, oh, a bit more laissez-faire, like, oh, just leave it, fine. But actually that's just as much your money as your personal income is, and you shouldn't be wasting it, because actually that money could be put somewhere else to much better use, could be put into your pension, for example, rather than sort of go to somebody who isn't doing anything for you.
Absolutely. So you've got a team now. How did you know when the right time to take somebody on was?
Well, I'll tell you what, the one thing I've always had is somebody helps me on admin.
Oh God, yeah.
Because I think that's one thing that really, if you've got any business, you really need someone to take that admin load off you. And I think I probably took my first person on for admin about a year after I started the business, because there was just too much to do, like too many invoices to create for and things like that, and too much stock to manage and all the rest of it. So I've always had somebody on the admin side, and then I also had some people to help me like on the marketing side a bit more, because I can't do it all. Sort of social media, so it's sort of grown out of there really. So but yeah, no,
do you have support with do you get the Access to Work grant?
I don't think so.
You need to.
What is it?
Oh God, access to, right. So for ADHD or autism, dyslexia, like any dyspraxia, so you could probably, I don't think you can get it twice, but you basically it's a government thing where you apply via the government website. It takes 14 weeks to come through, but you can get a grant to pay for things that help you in your business because you're struggling with your ADHD. So for example, admin, marketing, finances, all of those kind of things. And actually you can get up
that. I do love a bit of, I've paid enough tax in my life to feel like, when it's my turn.
So you do have to give quite a lot of detail about the why you're struggling with these kind of things.
I mean, if I'm really honest, I probably won't get it, because I'd rather other people who needed it more get it. I don't really need.
I don't think that's the case. You'll get it whether other people will get it as well. It's anybody can apply. You've got ADHD, and if you need help with stuff and you're paying for people to help you, you can get up to 60 hours a month, I think, admin support paid for. So could save you some money in your business. Handy hint for anybody else.
Everyone, that's very good advice for everyone. So going back to the story as well. So what happened was that I had all this, like, all looked very good, looked superficially, it was like amazing. I had like 22 distributors worldwide. I was selling like in like all the big retailers like Boots and Mothercare and John Lewis and everywhere. And then unfortunately my marriage kind of fell apart, and I ended up, like, we knew we were going to get divorced, and I was like, oh shit, because whilst the business looked great from the outside, when you're selling via distributors, etc., you don't make very much money. So you're making like £1 a unit, something like that. So I'd have had to have sold 100,000 units to make £100,000. And in order to make 100,000 units, it's going to cost me like 500,000 or whatever it might be. So you know, it looks good, but it wasn't really ticking the boxes. And so I thought, well, I've got to do something. So that's when I actually started looking at how I could go more direct. So I started investigating Amazon, basically, like on how to sell directly on Amazon. So my product has been a bestseller since 2010, but the volume wasn't there. And I think that was because there wasn't really anyone putting any oomph behind it, because no one was really controlling it. It was lots and lots of different sellers all selling, and it had one picture up, and next minute it had one other picture up. So I kind of took it over and started working directly. And then since then, I've then grown to sell in the UK. So I sell in the UK, the US, Europe. No, I don't do Europe actually so much since Brexit. That's really messed a lot of people up. Canada and Australia. So it's now, you know, much more sort of international. And then I also have 4 websites. So I have 4 websites again: UK, US, Australia, and Canada. So we sell directly. And then I have 1 distributor in New Zealand. I've got 1 distributor in the Republic of Ireland. And then other than that, yeah, I've got a few retailers like in Finland and Sweden and Norway and a few places like that. But now it's very much more direct to customer, which I love actually, because you know, I actually enjoy, even though sometimes we can all be a pain in the ass when we're a customer, and we do get those. But as a general rule, everyone is so lovely. And even if they're a pain in the ass to start with, normally it's because they've had a problem and they want you to sort it out. And I love sorting out problems. So
yeah, and that's why you've got amazing reviews.
Yes,
because
exactly.
you solve your customers' problems.
Yeah.
And you know, I think everybody has issues at one point or another in any business. It's how you deal with those that mean that you don't, like, God, in my old business, I used to get complaints all the time, mainly because it was really shit. And I didn't really realize it until I was out of it. But I never had any bad reviews because everybody was always looked after, and they always felt.
I mean, I think it's one area where a lot of companies fall down, and it's actually an easy win, because people are so surprised nowadays if they get good customer service.
Exactly.
It's really easy to like actually surprise people and give them great customer service, and they're like, it doesn't matter how annoyed they start off, by the end of it they're like, oh my God, this is amazing, thank you so much. And you're like, no, it's fine, honestly, it's just what we want to do. We want you to be happy.
Yeah,
you know?
All it takes is I'm really sorry, how can I help you to fix this? And people are like, yeah, sure.
I get really annoyed with the fact that actually many companies clearly have a remit where they don't allow customer service people to say sorry. Because the thing is, you're not
admits liability.
Sorry for, it must be liability or something like that. But it's ridiculous. Like, you can say, I'm sorry you've had this experience, without it being anything like admitting liability. But when someone says, I'm sorry that you've had this experience, you kind of feel like, oh, okay, yeah, fair enough.
They actually do give a shit about what I'm talking about. Yeah.
You're acknowledging me, and you're acknowledging that actually I've had a pretty shit time so far. And actually, thank you for acknowledging that, you know.
Absolutely. I think there are, you know, people don't like getting complaints. I actually quite like getting complaints.
I love complaints. I love it.
Because it helps you to grow as a business.
And it also helps you like learn like what's working, what's not working. I mean, one of the things, for example, that we've done more recently, which is something that it's been brewing for a while, but I wasn't really, I didn't have the confidence to do what probably needed to be done sooner, because I'm a people pleaser, right? So I want everyone to be happy, and I want everyone to be okay, and I want everyone to do what they want to do as long as it makes them happy. So what happened was, when I invented the first product, SnoozeShade Original, really that product is a lot smaller than my other products, and it is really designed to be used on a carry cot, right? It's not, I don't really want people, in the early days, it was fine using it on push chairs. But since then, I've developed products which are 1,000 times better for a push chair. And the original is brilliant for carry cots and for when baby's little and lying flat.
Yeah.
And so what I've done over the years is I've sort of let people buy the original, even though actually they really should get a plus or a plus deluxe, because those are designed for older children who are sitting up and want to look out. And then, but what happens is I was sort of like, oh, but I don't really want to tell people what to do. I don't really want to like take away their free choice and all this sort of stuff. But actually now what we've done is I went, no, do you know what? Fuck it, actually.
Yeah.
One of the problems we get is people say, I bought this and it doesn't fit my buggy. Well, the reason it will fit your buggy, right? But it won't be as easy, right?
Yeah.
Because it's smaller. So it's about 2/3 the size. If you know, if not, yeah. So it's about like the bigger products are about 3 times the size of the smaller product. So now in the last sort of 7 or 8 months, and even in the last couple of months, become much more focused on actually driving people to buy the right product for them.
Yeah.
And actually I've seen a lot less returns, which is really interesting. Because what I do now is I literally have pictures of like the product on carry cots, right? And it's, if your pram looks like this, you need this product. And then I've got another little thing that says, if your product looks like this, and we've got like a stroller and a jogging stroller, you need this one. And then on the other one, like we say this on this like jogging stroller or holiday stroller or whatever, you know, blah, blah, blah. But if your product looks like this, carry cot picture, you need that one. And now when people sort of come into us, we now say to them, you know, what position is baby lying in? And even in the last few weeks, we found that actually that's confusing, because some people have the baby reclining fully flat, but in a stroller seat. So now what we're starting to say is, okay, is your baby in the carry cot or the stroller seat? Because it doesn't matter about the position of them so much, but if you're in a carry cot, the baby's going to be lying flat. And if you're in a stroller seat, it doesn't matter whether you recline it flat or not, it's in a stroller seat. And since then, it's been really interesting. It's been a lot easier to actually say to people, this is the product you need. And then I've got one product where basically, if you've used a SnoozeShade before, the baby will probably be less resistant to it, which is an older product. Or if the child's never used a SnoozeShade before, I would recommend they went for the Plus Deluxe. And so instead of normally what we've done in the past, again, people pleasing, we're like, oh, well, you can have either the Plus or the Plus Deluxe, you know, and then people sometimes go for the cheaper product because they're just thinking about the money. So now, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but it's like, obviously, you know, but I want them to get the best product for them, because
otherwise they might have to buy it twice.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, they've only got to buy in total, you've only got to buy 2 products from me, in theory, like for your pram. You've got one for the carry cot when baby is under 6 months. And then you've got, or lying flat, depending on how long it takes them to sit up or move into the stroller seat. And then once they're in the stroller seat, like that product will probably last them. I mean, I used mine until Holly was 5, like just for the odd like holiday trip, or airplane transfer, or, you know, or an evening meal out and she was tired and wanted to go to sleep. So, you know, you're not talking about a cost per use, you're talking pretty low investment. And I would much rather that they actually got a product that they love rather than a product that's okay. So like if the baby has never used a SnoozeShade before and they're sitting up, I'm like, you want a Plus Deluxe. Don't bother with the Plus, just get the Plus Deluxe, because that is going to be the best product for you. And so we've just become a lot more
educational.
And actually I think what it does is, I've noticed we're getting so many few returns.
You're on TikTok now, aren't you?
Oh, well, not really. I mean, I am. We've got presence.
I think you'd absolutely smash it there.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just not. My problem is, you know, that's not really my area of, like, I say expertise. But
hi.
Yeah, no.
I think I know a few things about TikTok.
exactly. And I can't do everything, and I haven't got enough time in the day to do everything.
No.
But no, I mean, you know, I do do bits, and like my team like will get me to do things. We have like either 1 or 2 meetings a year where we get the whole team together, even though we're all over the place. So we've got someone from Northern Ireland, someone and then we've got someone like from down south, someone in London, someone, you know, so we just pull everyone together and say, right, and we have a team meeting. And at that I usually get like pushed into doing various videos of like, can you do this, explain that, do that, you know, blah blah blah. So I do that, which is quite good, and sort of do some video fodder. But you know, I mean, to be fair, you know, like we're doing as well as we are without that. So I just always sort of feel like, you know, it'd be a nice extra, but it's not necessary.
Not essential.
It's not essential, not at the moment, you know.
It's just
something I'll probably put into the diary when we're quieter, which is in the sort of October onwards sort of time of year.
It's just, I think it's a really good, because what you could do is you could just, you know, batch create loads of content, exactly. And then push it out, because I feel like for any product-based business, I mean, really for any business, for any niche, TikTok is really, really good.
Yeah.
You know, it's specific talks, they call them. So you've got like, I mean, so like mine is like money talk and ADHD talk. I'm there a lot as well. You know, I think it's very educational for me, and I learn a lot about my brain there.
Yeah, but there's on Instagram good for that as well. Actually, there's quite a few good people on Instagram on the ADHD. I tend to follow them from my personal account rather than SnoozeShade, but
Yeah, yeah. So it is kind of like an education platform, and there are a lot of parents there, especially new mums.
Oh no, absolutely. Well, you see, when it first started, you have to remember I've got a 15-year-old. And so when it first started, it was Musically, and Holly was like,
Yes.
I don't know, 7 or 8, and like, it's all just dancing around, blah, blah, blah. And I remember thinking, oh my God, what a load of old rubbish.
Yeah.
And then actually now everyone's kind of growing up that much more.
Yeah.
And so therefore older people are moving on to it as they have.
And I think there is a space for us oldies on there. Like I think there wasn't before, but now I think God, there are so many. There are actually like really old ladies and old men on there, like proper
Yeah,
granny and
yeah,
granddads. Like I see them, and it's like, but actually they get loads of followers because they're really funny. So yeah, it's an interesting place to be, and I genuinely recommend it to all business owners. Like whether you're creating a small business at home or you're trying to do something that's massive, I think it's a really good way of growing an audience.
yeah. No, absolutely.
I mean, I am biased, but I think it's
Well, we all
a
have
good.
our personal faves. I mean, I actually,
Yeah.
like, when I first started, we were very much on Facebook, whereas now actually Instagram is a place that I really like.
Yeah.
Get a lot more interaction on Instagram, which so therefore I think I enjoy being places where my customers are. And so, if my customers were on TikTok, I'd probably do more on that, which they are, but
They
I think
are.
they tend to come to us on Instagram.
Yeah.
As the first port of call, because we do encourage people to come to us via social media anyway. So wherever anyone buys the product, I'm always like, look, it doesn't matter where you bought the product from, come and find us. We're on like Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
If you've got a problem, come and speak to us because we can help. And nothing frustrates me more than seeing a negative review that someone's put up because they've had a problem with the product and they haven't bloody tried to find us. We're not hard to find.
Yeah. Oh, that's so annoying, isn't it?
And it is
Yeah.
really annoying because I don't really care. I'll give them a bloody refund. I don't give a shit. Like we get so few problems. Like I would really happily give someone a refund, like rather than be unhappy with the brand. But
Absolutely.
instead, they're like, don't take the effort to like contact. And then I get a bad review and I'm like, because it doesn't fit. And it's like, well, actually it will fit. Because I mean, in 13 years, I haven't found a pram I can't make things fit to.
Yeah.
But it might just be that you've got a slightly quirky one, or they haven't read the instructions that we've given them. So they have instruction videos, we have instructions on the website, we have instructions everywhere. And they all say, you don't need to use all the straps. And then people come to us like, oh, I can't get it to fit. And you're like, okay, so could you send me a
Maybe
photo?
they've got ADHD.
I don't know.
That's always my excuse for not reading
I
instructions.
think it's just baby brain, to be honest, because I remember what it's like when you've just had a baby, your brain's all over the place. The last thing you feel like doing is anything that is not like, easily accessible. But I mean, I do get frustrated because like, well, we've attached the straps everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, but actually, if you take the top straps off, then everything else will fit really nicely. So and like we do say in capital letters, you do not need to use all the straps. But people still feel because the straps are on there that they should use them.
They have to use them.
But at the same time, I get frustrated because I'm like, I wish I could actually write on the strap, like, you may not need
you don't need to use me.
yeah, you may not need to use me.
Oh, so Cara, what's next for SnoozeShade and you?
Well, for SnoozeShade, I've got a couple of new products in development, which I'm quite excited about. One is a SnoozeShade for special needs buggies.
Oh, wow.
Because we get quite a lot of parents of children who have various sort of sensory needs.
Yeah.
So for example, they don't want to have lots of light and visual stimuli and all the rest of it. And also that there are no decent sunshades for those type of buggies either.
Yeah.
And then I'm also looking at some other ideas for products as well. So we'll sort of see. But as I said, it is a bit like creating giving birth. So therefore it's it does take me quite a while to sort of build up the energy levels needed to sort of make a new product. But I'm in the process of like sampling at the moment for that one, which is quite interesting and quite exciting. So I'm quite interested in that. And then for me, I mean, I get asked to speak at events, telling the story of like the business, and people always say it's very inspiring and what have you.
It is.
Which is weird to me because it's just what I've done. Like it's funny, isn't it? Like, I would probably say the same to somebody else who'd done the same thing, but for me, I'm just like, yeah, that's just what I've done. So So I've done quite a lot of talks, in the UK and around the world actually on that. So I quite enjoy doing that. And it's another way of spreading the SnoozeShade message, which I
It
quite
is, yeah, of
enjoy.
course, yeah.
And I mean, just kind of keeping the business growing sort of sustainably. I'm not interested in growing it to stupid numbers, because the more stupid numbers you get, the more work is involved. And if I'm really honest, I'm at a point in my life now where Holly is like about to do her GCSEs next year, then she'll be doing her A-levels, then she'll be going to university. And I think, it's interesting. We get to know ourselves, I think, a bit better as we get older. And I think, lots of people have offered to buy SnoozeShade from me as a brand and all the rest of it. I've said no many, many times. Because actually I'm quite enjoying it at the moment. I'm enjoying having my team. I'm enjoying like the fact that, we're busy, we're getting busier. I'm enjoying the fact that it's still growing. Like, we're 13 years in and we doubled turnover in the UK last year. I mean, that's just incredible.
And that gives you dopamine, right? And that's what our ADHD brains need, is dopamine.
Exactly. So you see, I don't do it for the money. Actually, that I've never done it for the money. I've always done it because I believe that my products help people, and
they do, absolutely,
and I'm a helper. So if someone has a problem, like, I get a lot of my friends come to me, they've got a problem, like, Cara, can you solve it, sort of thing. And I think what I love about it is I don't sit there looking at the numbers. I look at of money. I look at the numbers of, like, well, how can I reach more parents to let them know? Because I still get people like going, I wish I'd known about your product before, or with my first
I never knew about it when my kids were small. Sad.
And I'm like, well, sorry, I'm as good at marketing as I can be. I can't, like, and also, I'm only a small business. I haven't got budgets to, and also I've never wanted to do, you never know where these things work, and I'm always a bit like nervous about wasting money, like, in terms of, I'm happy to test things, don't get me wrong. So, like, even now, like, we do tests on things like Facebook ads, like what kind of ad is working, and my Amazon ads, what works, what doesn't work, and Google and all that sort of stuff. So I'm quite happy to test, but I don't like to waste. So
no, and I get that. So on that note, where can people find you? What's your website and your socials?
Well, so SnoozeShade is snoozeshade.com, and SnoozeShade on every form of social media, basically. So if you look, we're there.
Amazing. Well, it's been really nice to have you. Cara's very kindly given us a discount code for SnoozeShade, which we're going to have featured in the Mad About Money app. So if you want to know more about them and you haven't heard about them already, come and check that out. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you. If you are listening to this podcast in the Mad About Money app, then you're in the right place. If you're listening to it on Spotify or Apple Music, then you need to download the Mad About Money app, and you need to come and be better with your finances. I'm Maddy Alexander-Grout, and this has been Mad About Money. We'll see you next time.